A poor seamstress was told to sit at the servant's end of her own engagement party. The rich mother of the groom stood before 300 guests and demanded the wedding be canceled, calling the girl a gold digger with empty pockets and borrowed shoes. But why did a long black convoy suddenly stop at the gate in the middle of her shame? Why did the most powerful man in Calabar go pale the moment he saw the cheap half-coin hanging around her neck? And what was hidden inside that worn piece of metal that would turn the whole room upside down before the night was over? Stay with me till the end, because this is a story you will not forget. Dear wonderful viewers, if stories about kindness, hidden truth, and the way heaven lifts the humble touch your heart, please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what we post. Kindly like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Now, sit back and let us begin. The city of Calabar was just waking up when Mercy Edom opened her small tailoring stall by the roadside at Watt Market. It was a little before 7 in the morning. The air still smelled of morning rain and roasted corn. Her stall was nothing much to look at. It was a wooden shed with a zinc roof that leaked in 2 places, a single sewing machine she had bought secondhand, 3 plastic chairs for waiting customers, and a length of curtain she pulled across the front at night. But to Mercy, it was everything. It was the only thing in the world that was truly hers. She wiped down her machine with an old cloth, the way she did every morning. Then she sat, threaded her needle, and began to work on a school uniform a mother had brought the day before. Her fingers moved fast and sure. People in that part of Calabar knew her hands. They said Mercy could take an old, tired dress and make it look like something bought from a big shop. They said her stitches never came loose. What they did not know was how many nights she sat under a small lamp, sewing until her eyes burned, because every naira mattered. Mercy was 24 years old. She was slim, with a quiet face and eyes that seemed always to be listening. She did not talk much. She did not laugh loudly. But when she smiled, something soft came into the whole stall. Her customers trusted her. The old women called her "my daughter." The market boys who pushed wheelbarrows called her Sister Mercy and never cheated her on the price of anything. But behind that quiet face was a life that had known very little rest. Mercy had no mother that she could remember. She had no father. She did not even know if they were alive or dead. All she knew was the woman who had raised her, a poor foster nanny named Mama Ekaet, who had taken her in as a baby and loved her as her own. Mama Ekaet had been a fish seller. She had a bent back and rough hands and a laugh that filled a whole room. She had no money, but she had a heart big enough for 2 children, though God had given her none of her own. Mercy, Mama Ekaet used to say, we do not have plenty, but we have each other. And a person with love is never truly poor. Mercy had believed her. Even when they ate gari and groundnut for supper 3 nights in a row, even when the rain came through the roof and they moved the mattress to the dry corner, she had believed her. But 2 years ago, Mama Ekaet had fallen sick. It came slowly, then all at once. Mercy sold almost everything they had to pay for the hospital, but the sickness was stronger than medicine. On the last night, the old woman called Mercy close to the bed. Her voice was thin, like a thread about to break. "My daughter," Mama Ekaet said, "come near. I do not have much time." "Mama, please do not talk like that," Mercy said, tears already falling. "You will be well. You will see." "Listen to me," the old woman said. "There is something I must tell you before I go." She reached under her wrapper with a trembling hand and brought out something wrapped in a small cloth. She pressed it into Mercy's palm. "This is yours. It was with you the day you came to me." Mercy opened the cloth. Inside was a pendant on a worn black cord. It was a coin, but only half of a coin, broken cleanly down the middle, its edges smooth from being held for many years. On the half that remained, there was part of an image she could not fully make out, and half of some letters. "Mama, what is this?" Mercy asked. "It is half of a coin," the old woman said. "Your real people kept the other half. That is what the note said. The people who brought you to me. One day, if heaven wills it, the 2 halves will find each other again. Keep it. Never sell it. Never lose it. It is the only thing that can lead you home." "Home?" Mercy whispered. "Mama, you are my home." The old woman smiled through her pain. "There is more, my child. On your left shoulder, that little mark shaped like the young moon." I always called it the mark of a big house. Do not be ashamed of it. One day it will speak for you when your mouth cannot." Mercy could not understand any of it. She only held the old woman's hand and cried. Before the first light of morning, Mama Ekiet closed her eyes and did not open them again. That was 2 years ago. Since then, Mercy had been alone in the world. She wore the half coin every single day, tucked under her clothes, close to her heart. Sometimes at night she held it and wondered about the people who kept the other half. Were they alive? Did they ever think of her? Or had they thrown her away like a torn cloth? She would never know, she told herself. Some doors never open. So she stopped asking. She worked. She saved. She kept her head down and her heart clean. And then, one afternoon, a young man walked into her stall with a torn shirt and changed everything. His name was Arins Okafor. He was 28, tall, with an easy manner and a laugh that came quickly. He had ripped his shirt on the door of his car, he said, and someone at the market had pointed him to the best tailor around. Mercy took the shirt, told him to wait, and mended it so well that when she handed it back, he turned it over and over, looking for the tear. "I cannot even find where it was," Arins said, amazed. "You have magic in these hands." "It is only practice, sir," Mercy said. "How much do I owe you?" 200 naira, she said. He laughed. 200? For this? In the shops, they would charge me 5 times that and do it badly. He paid her 1,000 naira and refused to take change. "Buy yourself something cold," he said. He came back the next week with another shirt that did not need mending. Then again the week after. It took Mercy some time to understand that the shirts were only an excuse. Arins did not care about the shirts. He came to sit on one of her plastic chairs and talk, to watch her work, to hear her quiet voice. And slowly, without either of them planning it, something grew between them that was warm and real. Arins came from money. Mercy knew that from his shoes, his car, the way he spoke. His father, Mr. Emeka Okafor, owned a chain of building material stores across the south. His mother, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, was known all over Calabar for her big parties and her sharp tongue. But Arins was not proud like his family. He was kind. He listened. And when he looked at Mercy, he did not see a poor girl in a leaking stall. He saw the woman he loved. "Marry me," he said to her one evening, 6 months after that first torn shirt. They were sitting outside her stall as the sky turned orange. "I do not care where you come from. I do not care that you have nothing. You are the best person I have ever met, Mercy. Marry me." Mercy's heart shook. "Arins," she said softly, "your family will never accept me. You know this. I am a roadside tailor. I have no father, no mother, no name. Your mother will not even look at me. Leave my mother to me," Arins said. "I love you. That is what matters." Mercy looked at him for a long time. Then she looked down at her rough, needle-marked hands and up again at his hopeful face. And against all the fear in her heart, she said yes. She did not know that saying yes would lead her, in only a few weeks, into the most shameful and the most wonderful night of her entire life. When Arins told his family that he wanted to marry, his mother was excited at first. Mrs. Ngozi Okafor had been waiting for years for her only son to settle down. She already had a picture in her mind of the kind of bride she wanted. She wanted a girl from a big family, a girl whose father was a chief or a commissioner or the owner of some large company. She wanted a wedding that all of Calabar would talk about for years. She wanted in-laws she could boast about at every party. "So who is she?" Ngozi asked her son over dinner one evening, smiling widely. "Which family? Tell me everything. Is it the Ekpenyong girl or one of the Duke daughters?" Arins put down his fork. "Her name is Mercy. Mama. Mercy Edom. She is a tailor at Watt Market." The smile fell off his mother's face like water off a plate. "A what? A tailor? She sews clothes. She has her own stall. She is the most hard-working, honest, gentle person I have ever known." Ngozi looked at her husband, then back at her son, as if she had not heard well. "Arins," she said slowly, "are you telling me that you, the son of Emeka Okafor, want to bring a roadside seamstress into this house as my daughter-in-law? A girl with no family?" A girl who sews for 200 naira under a leaking roof? How do you know about her roof? Arinz asked quietly. I know girls like her, Gozi said, her voice rising. I know exactly what they want. They see a rich man and they smell money. They will do anything, anything to trap him. And you have fallen for it like a small boy. Mama, that is not fair. You have not even met her. And I do not need to, Ngozi snapped. But Arinz did not back down. He was calm, but he was firm, the way still water is firm. I am marrying her, Mama. With your blessing or without it. I would rather have your blessing. So please, at least meet her. Let us hold the engagement here, at the house, the proper way. Let her family, or what she has, come and meet you. If after that your heart is still hard, then we will talk. But give her a chance. Mr. Emeka Okafor, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke. He was a heavy, tired man who long ago had learned it was easier to let his wife win. Let the boy bring the girl, he said. We will see. A meeting costs nothing, Ngozi said nothing more that night. But in her heart, a plan was already turning. She agreed to the engagement, yes. She would hold the grandest ceremony Calabar had seen in years, but not to welcome Mercy. She would use that very ceremony, before hundreds of important guests, to shame the poor girl so completely that she would run away and never come back. And to make sure of it, Ngozi began, quietly, to make her own arrangements. The day of the engagement came. The Okafor compound was a wonder to behold. It sat behind tall white walls in the richest part of Calabar, with a garden, a fountain, and a house so large that Mercy's whole neighborhood could have fit inside it. For the ceremony, Ngozi had spared nothing. There were white canopies and gold chairs on the green lawn. There were long tables covered in white cloth, heavy with jollof rice, fried rice, pepper soup, roasted goat, small chops, and drinks of every kind. A live band played softly. Uniformed waiters moved between the guests. And the guests, 300 of them, were the cream of Calabar society. There were business owners, chiefs, government people, and their wives dressed in lace and gold and expensive head ties that stood tall like crowns. Into all this splendor came Mercy. She had spent her last savings to look her best. She had sewn her own dress with her own hands, a simple blue gown, neat and clean, but plain beside the shining fabrics all around her. Her shoes were modest. Her only jewelry, hidden under the neck of her dress as always, was the half coin on its worn black cord. She came with only 2 people, an old woman from her street who had known Mama Ekayet and a girl friend from the market. That was all the family she had. When she stepped through the gate and saw the crowd, the lights, the wealth, her heart nearly failed her. But then she saw Arinz coming toward her, smiling, and she breathed again. You look beautiful, he said, taking her hand. Do not be afraid. I am here. He led her toward the front, toward the high table where the 2 families were meant to sit and greet each other. But before they got there, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor rose from her seat and came to meet them, all smiles for the watching crowd. Ah, so this is the famous Mercy, Ngozi said sweetly, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. She looked Mercy up and down, her eyes sliding over the homemade dress, the modest shoes. Welcome, my dear. We have all been so curious to meet you. Then she turned and called to a waiter. You, show this young lady where she can sit. Take her to the end there, near the service tables. Yes, that side. She will be more comfortable with her own kind of people. A silence spread over the nearest guests. The service tables were where the waiters rested and where the drivers and hired hands ate. It was the servants' end, far from the high table, half hidden behind a canopy pole. Arinz's face went dark. Mama, what are you doing? She is my bride. She sits with me. She sits where a guest of her standing sits, Ngozi said, her sweet voice turning to iron. This is my house and my party. Do not embarrass me. You are the one embarrassing us all, Arinz said. But Mercy touched his arm. Her face was calm, though something inside her had cracked. It is all right, she said softly. I will sit wherever they wish. I did not come here to fight. I came because I love you. She walked, with her head up, to the servants' end, and she sat on a plastic chair among the drivers in her handmade blue dress, while 300 rich guests turned to look and whisper behind their hands. Some laughed, some pitied her. Mercy folded her hands in her lap and stared straight ahead, and though her eyes shone with tears she refused to let fall, she did not run. She would not give them that. She did not know that her patience that night was being watched by heaven. And she did not know that the woman who had sent her to the servant's end had prepared something far worse than a bad seat. When the food had been served and the band had played a few songs, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor stood up and asked the band to stop. She took a microphone from one of the waiters. She smiled at the crowd, that wide smile that never reached her eyes. "My dear friends," she began, "thank you all for coming to honor my family tonight. As you know, we gathered here to celebrate the engagement of my only son, Arinz." There was polite clapping. "But before we go any further," Ngozi went on, "I have a duty as a mother, a duty to protect my son. And so there are some things this whole gathering must hear tonight." Arinz stood up at once. "Mama, sit down. Do not do this." "Sit down yourself, my son," Ngozi said into the microphone, and two of her relatives gently but firmly held Arinz by the shoulders. "You will thank me later. You are blinded by this girl, but a mother's eyes see clearly." She turned to the crowd. "This young woman my son wants to marry, this Mercy, she is not what she appears. She has been telling my son sweet stories, but I have found out the truth. And I have brought witnesses." A whisper ran through the guests like wind through grass. Mercy sat frozen at the servant's end, her hands cold. "Come forward," Ngozi called. A young woman stepped out from behind the canopy. She was dressed well, but her eyes could not stay still. Her name was Gloria. "This woman," Ngozi announced, "knows our dear Mercy from the market. Tell them, Gloria. Tell everyone what you told me." Gloria took the microphone. Her voice trembled a little. I know Mercy well," she said. "We are from the same area, and I know that she is not pregnant, but she has been telling people she is carrying Arinz's baby. She said she would use it to force him to marry her. She said rich men are foolish, and this one is the most foolish of all." The crowd gasped. Someone shouted, "Shame! That is a lie!" Mercy cried, jumping to her feet. "I never said such a thing. I have never even claimed to be pregnant. This woman, I do not even know her well. Why are you lying against me?" She looked at Gloria, searching her face, but Gloria looked away. "There is more," Ngozi said, taking the microphone back. She held up a sheet of paper. "This is a debt paper. This girl owes money all over Calabar. She borrowed from people, promising she would soon marry a rich man and pay them back. Here is the proof, with her name and her thumbprint. 485,000 naira she owes. This is who she is. A girl drowning in debt, hunting for a rich husband to bail her out. A gold digger. That is the woman my son wants to bring into this family." The paper, of course, was a forgery. Ngozi had paid a man to make it, and she had paid Gloria 50,000 naira to stand up and lie. She had planned it all for weeks. She wanted no chance that Mercy would survive this night with her honor. "That paper is false," Mercy said, her voice breaking. "I owe no one. I have never borrowed money in my life. Mama Ikiet raised me to fear debt like fire. Whatever is written there, I did not write it, and I did not put my thumb on it." "Then how did your name get on it?" Ngozi asked coldly. The crowd murmured against Mercy. Arinz broke free from the hands holding him. He strode to the front and stood beside Mercy, facing his mother and the whole gathering. "Enough!" he shouted. "I have heard enough. Mama, I do not know how much you paid this woman to lie, but I can see the truth in her shaking hands. And this paper, bring it, let me see it. Mercy cannot even owe her landlord 1 month, talk less of nearly 500,000 naira. I know her. I know her heart. She has never lied to me once, not once, in all the time I have known her." "You are a foolish, love-drunk boy!" Ngozi screamed, losing her sweet mask at last. "She has bewitched you! I will not allow it! Do you hear me? This wedding is canceled! Canceled! No son of mine will marry a penniless, fatherless roadside tailor who cannot even name her own parents. Get out! Get out of my house, you common gold digger, before I have the security throw you into the gutter where you belong." The whole compound went silent. 300 faces stared. Mercy stood in her handmade blue dress, tears now falling freely down her cheeks, more alone than she had ever been in her life. She looked at Arins, who was holding her hand so tightly it hurt, and she opened her mouth to speak, to say she would leave, that she would not fight where she was not wanted. But she never got the chance to say it, because at that very moment, from beyond the tall white walls, there came the sound of engines. Not one engine, many, deep, powerful, drawing closer. Headlights swept across the top of the gate, and then the great gates of the Okafor compound were pushed open by the gatemen, who were suddenly bowing, and a convoy rolled in. It was a line of long black cars, polished until they shone like glass, led by a sleek Mercedes with tinted windows, followed by 2 heavy SUVs. Men in dark suits stepped out first, moving quickly, professional, their eyes sweeping the compound. The band members lowered their instruments. The waiters stood still. Every head turned toward the gate. "Who is that?" someone whispered. "Is that?" "It cannot be. It is him. It is Chief Effiong, Chief Dr. Bassi Effiong." The name moved through the crowd like fire through dry grass. Chief Dr. Bassi Effiong, the oil and gas magnate, one of the richest and most respected men in the whole of the South. A man whose name was on hospitals and schools. A man whom governors stood up to greet. Mrs. Ngozi Okafor had invited him weeks ago, more out of pride than hope, wanting to boast that such a man had graced her son's engagement. She had not truly believed he would come, but he had come. The door of the Mercedes opened, and out stepped a tall, silver-haired man in a rich cream-colored agbada, a man who carried both great power and, strangely, great sadness in his face. He was perhaps 60 years old. He moved slowly, with dignity, and the moment his shoes touched the ground, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor forgot all about Mercy. She rushed forward with her arms wide, her sweet party smile back on her face as if it had never left. Chief Effiong, you came!" "Oh, what an honor, what a great honor to my humble home." Welcome, sir." Chief Effiong nodded politely, but he did not really look at her. His eyes were moving over the strange scene before him, the frozen crowd, the young man clutching the hand of a weeping girl in a plain blue dress, the microphone in the loud woman's hand. He was a man who had walked into 1,000 rooms. He could feel at once that something ugly had just happened here. "I am sorry to arrive in the middle of your evening," he said in his deep, quiet voice. "It seems I have come at a bad moment." No, not at all," Ngozi said quickly. "It is nothing, sir. Just a small family matter, a small, unpleasant girl we were sending away. Please, come, sit. Let me get you the best seat. Let me." But Chief Effiong was no longer listening to her, because as he stepped further into the light of the canopies, his eyes had landed on the weeping girl, and they had stopped there. They had stopped on the thin black cord around her neck, and on the small piece of metal that had slipped out from under the neck of her dress when she stood to defend herself, and now hung in plain view against the blue cloth, a half of a coin. The old man went completely still. The color drained from Chief Effiong's face. His breathing changed. The men in dark suits noticed and moved closer, thinking their boss had taken ill. "Chief, are you all right, sir?" one of them asked. But Chief Effiong did not answer. He walked forward, past Mrs. Ngozi Okafor as if she were not there at all, past the high table, straight toward the girl in the blue dress. The crowd parted before him. He stopped in front of Mercy, and for a long moment he simply stared at the half coin on her chest, and his lips were trembling. "Where?" he said, and his powerful voice had gone hoarse and small. "Where did you get that?" Mercy was confused and frightened. This great man was staring at her as though he had seen a ghost. "Sir?" she said. "That pendant, around your neck, where did you get it? Please, I must know." Mercy's hand went up to hold the half coin, the way it always did when she was afraid. It was mine from birth, sir," she said. "The woman who raised me, Mama Ekayet, she gave it to me before she died. She said it was with me the day I was brought to her, as a baby. She said my real people kept the other half. That is all I know. I do not know who they are. I have no family, sir." A sound came out of Chief Effiong, then a sound that no one in that compound had ever expected to hear from such a mighty man. It was half a gasp and half a sob. His hand went into the inner pocket of his agbada, over his heart, and it was shaking so badly he could barely control it. Slowly, he drew out something and held it up in the light. It was a half of a coin, on a fine gold chain, worn smooth, broken cleanly down one side. The two halves, seen together, were the same size, the same age, the same coin. 24 years, Chief Effiong said, tears now running openly down the face of a man who governors feared. For 24 years I have carried this against my heart. I have never taken it off, not for one single day. "Chief, what is happening?" Ngozi asked, her voice suddenly thin. He did not look at her. "May I?" he asked Mercy gently, reaching toward the pendant on her chest. "May I hold it beside mine? Please." Mercy, hardly breathing, lifted the black cord over her head and placed her half coin in the old man's open palm. Everyone in the compound leaned forward. The band was silent. The waiters were silent. 300 people held their breath as one. Chief Effiong brought the two halves together, edge to edge, in his trembling hands. They fit perfectly. The broken lines matched like two hands clasping. And when the halves were joined, the image on the coin became whole, and the letters became a word, and it was a name, engraved long ago by a goldsmith in Calabar, on a coin a father had cut in two on the day his daughter was born, so that mother and child would each carry a half. The name on the coin was Idara. "Idara," Chief Effiong whispered, and his knees nearly gave way. Two of his men caught his arms. "That was her name. That was my daughter's name. Idara. It means joy. She was our joy." He looked up at Mercy's face, searching it, and now everyone could see it. The shape of the eyes, the line of the brow, the same quiet dignity. "You have your mother's face," he said, weeping. "Oh God, you have Grace's face. I would know it anywhere." The whole compound erupted in noise. People stood on their chairs. Women screamed, "The coins matched! Did you see? The two halves are one! She is his daughter! The tailor is Chief Effiong's daughter!" Mercy stood shaking her head slowly, tears streaming, unable to understand, afraid to hope. "No," she said. "No, sir, there must be a mistake. I am nobody. I am a tailor. I have no father. Please, do not play with me. My heart cannot take it. Sit down, my child, before you fall," Chief Effiong said, and he guided her gently to a chair and knelt in front of her, this old and mighty man kneeling on the grass before a roadside seamstress. "Let me tell you a story. 24 years ago, my wife Grace gave birth to our first and only child, a baby girl, at St. Margaret Hospital here in Calabar. We named her Idara. She was born with a small mark on her left shoulder, shaped like the young moon. My wife used to kiss that little mark every night. Mercy's whole body went cold. Her hand rose slowly to the neck of her dress. 3 days after she was born," the chief continued, his voice breaking, "there was confusion at the hospital in the night. When morning came, they told us our baby had died. They showed us a small body, wrapped up. We buried it. My wife never recovered. She wept every day for 10 years, until her heart simply gave up and she died of grief, calling our daughter's name. And I never fully believed it. Something in me never believed my Idara was dead. I hired people. I searched for years. I put money into hospitals and orphanages all over this state, hoping. I cut this coin in two so that if she ever lived, she would carry a piece of me, and one day, by God's hand, the halves would meet." He took her hand. "My child, that mark on your shoulder, will you let these women here look at it? Not the men, only a woman, so that all these people will know the truth?" Mercy, weeping, nodded. Arinza's own mother's sister, an older woman, and Mercy's friend from the market drew a cloth around her, and Mercy pulled aside the shoulder of her blue dress. And there, on her left shoulder, was a small birthmark, shaped exactly like a young crescent moon. The older woman looked, and she covered her mouth, and she cried out, "It is true! The mark is here! It is here on her shoulder, just as he said! The young moon! Praise God, the young moon!" The compound went wild, but even in all that noise, a hard voice cut through. It was Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, pale and desperate, refusing to let go. "This is a trick!" she shouted. "A coin can be copied! A birthmark means nothing!" She planned all this. She is still a debtor, still a liar who claimed a false pregnancy. "I have a witness! I have papers!" And it was then, in the middle of her shouting, that the second sub of the convoy opened its door, and one of Chief Effiong's aides helped out a very old, very frail woman in a wheelchair, wrapped in shawls despite the warm night, an oxygen line at her nose. The aide wheeled her slowly into the light. "Wait," the old woman said, in a voice thin as paper but somehow clear. "Wait, before you go on, madam, there is something everyone here must hear. I have carried it for 24 years, and I am dying, and I will not carry it into my grave." Chief Effiong turned. "This is Nurse Comfort Okan," he told the crowd, his voice unsteady. "1 week ago, a message reached me. A dying woman was asking to see me before her time ran out. She said she had a sin to confess about a child. I did not know what it meant. I have chased so many false hopes over the years, but something told me to go. I was bringing her to my house to record her words properly when my driver reminded me I had promised to greet this gathering on the way. That is why I am here tonight. That is the only reason. Heaven arranged it. Nurse Okan, speak. Tell them what you told me you would tell no one but God." The old midwife's hands shook on the arms of her wheelchair, but her eyes were steady and full of tears. From under her shawl, she pulled out an old, worn record book, its cover soft with age. "For 30 years I worked at St. Margaret Hospital," she began. "I brought hundreds of babies into this world, but there is one night I have never been able to forget. 24 years ago, on the same night that Madame Grace Effiong gave birth to a baby girl, another woman gave birth in the next room. Her baby, a girl, was born sick, and in the night, that baby died. She stopped to breathe from the oxygen. That woman was rich and proud, and she could not bear to go home empty. She came to me. She offered me money, more money than I would earn in 5 years. She begged me. She threatened me, and God forgive me. I was young and poor and afraid, and I did the worst thing a midwife can ever do. The compound was so silent you could hear the fountain. I switched the babies," Nurse Okan said, and she began to weep. "In the dead of night, I took the living baby, the Effiong baby, the healthy girl with the little moon on her shoulder, and I gave her to the other woman as her own. And I wrapped the dead baby and gave it to the Effiongs, and told them their child had died. I wrote it all here, in this book, on this page, because even in my sin I could not fully bury the truth, the date, the 2 mothers, the mark on the shoulder, everything." She held up the open book with shaking hands. "But the woman who took the living child, she was cruel. Within a year, she quarreled with her husband and fled, and she abandoned the baby with strangers, and the baby passed from hand to hand until a kind fish seller named Ekayet took her in and raised her as mercy. I followed the child's story from afar all these years, too afraid to speak, until now, when death is at my door." "The note," Mercy suddenly whispered. She fumbled in her small bag with shaking fingers and drew out a folded, yellowed piece of paper. "Mama Ekayet kept a note. She said it came with me. I have kept it, but I could never make sense of it." She handed it to Chief Effiong. He unfolded it and read aloud, his voice breaking on every word. "This child came from St. Margaret. She is not who they will say she is. Her true people are great, and one day the other half of her coin will find her. Keep her safe." He looked at the midwife. "This is your handwriting. It is mine," Nurse Okan wept. "I could not keep her, but I could not let the truth die completely. I slipped that note in with her, praying that heaven would one day finish what I was too weak to finish." There was not a dry eye in the whole compound. Even the hired waiters were wiping their faces. Mercy sat trembling, her whole life turning over inside her. The leaking roof, the plastic chairs, the loneliness, the half coin held in the dark. She was not fatherless. She had never been fatherless. She had a father, and he had wept for her for 24 years. But Nurse Okan was not finished. She turned her old head slowly toward Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, and her thin voice grew hard. "And you, madam," she said. "I have been sitting in that car for the last 10 minutes. I heard you with my own ears. I heard you tell all these people that this child is a debtor and a liar who faked a pregnancy." You held up a paper. "Bring that paper here. In all my years, I have learned to read a false document. And bring that young woman you paid to lie." I saw her face when she spoke. That is not the face of someone telling the truth. That is the face of someone who has taken money to destroy an innocent girl. All eyes swung to Gloria. The young woman had gone gray. She looked at Ngozi, then at the huge crowd, then at the mighty Chief Effiong standing with his arm around Mercy, and her nerve broke completely. "I lied!" Gloria cried, falling to her knees on the grass. "I am sorry! I am so sorry. Madame Ngozi paid me 50,000 naira to stand here and say Mercy claimed to be pregnant. It is not true. None of it is true. Mercy never said any such thing. I do not even know her well. I only wanted the money. And the debt paper is fake too. Madam had a man forge it. There is no debt. Mercy owes nobody. Please forgive me. Please." A roar of anger went up from the crowd. Chief Effiong walked slowly to Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, who was now shaking, and held out his hand. "The paper," he said, in a voice of quiet thunder. Ngozi, cornered, defeated, placed the forged debt paper in his hand. Chief Effiong looked at it for one moment. Then he tore it in two, then in four. Then he let the pieces fall to the ground like dead leaves. "This," he said, raising his voice so the whole gathering could hear, "is what your lies are worth. Nothing." Torn paper on the grass. Mrs. Ngozi Okafor's legs gave way beneath her. She sank down onto the grass in her expensive lace and her tall head tie, and beside her, her husband Emeka came down too, his heavy face buried in his hands. All the pride, all the boasting, all the sweet smiles, gone. The great and important guests she had wanted to impress now looked at her with disgust and pity. "Chief," Ngozi sobbed, crawling toward him. "Chief Effiong, forgive us. Forgive me. I did not know. I did not know she was your daughter. If I had known, I swear I would have—" "That," said Chief Effiong, and his voice was like cold iron, "is exactly the sickness in your heart, madam. You say if you had known she was my daughter. So it was fine to trample her when you thought she was only a poor tailor? A person with no rich father was rubbish to you, to be sent to the servant's end and shamed before 300 people? You did not do this because she was guilty. You did it because she was poor. And that is the very thing that is wrong with you, and with too many people in this world." Ngozi had no answer. She only wept into the grass. Chief Effiong turned away from her and went back to Mercy. He took both her hands and drew her gently to her feet, and there, before all of Calabar's finest, he did something that made the crowd gasp again. He, the great Chief Dr. Bassi Effiong, went down on one knee before the roadside seamstress in the handmade blue dress. "My daughter," he said. "My Idara. I failed to protect you when you were a baby. For 24 years you suffered, and I was not there. You slept under a leaking roof while I slept in a mansion built for a family I thought I had lost. You went hungry while my table was full. Tonight, before all these people, I claim you. You are my daughter, my only child, my heir, the joy your name always promised. From this night, no one will ever again send you to sit among the servants. Do you hear me? No one." He kissed her hands. "Will you forgive an old man for not finding you sooner?" Mercy fell into his arms, and father and daughter wept together on the lawn while 300 people cried with them in the band. Not knowing what else to do, softly began to play. It was the most astonishing thing anyone there had ever seen. The girl who had walked in with nothing, who had been called a gold digger and sent to the servant's end, was the true daughter of the richest man in the region, and she had borne her shame with such quiet grace that heaven itself had seemed to open the gate at the perfect moment. Through all of it, one person had never let go of Mercy's hand, Arin's. He had stood by her when she was poor. He had defended her against his own mother when it cost him everything. He had believed her word against a forged paper and a paid witness. Now he stood a little apart, uncertain, wondering what a great chief would want for his newly found daughter, sure that a poor man's son could no longer dream of marrying her. but Chief Effiong had been watching him too. "Young man," the chief said, wiping his eyes. "Come here." Arins came forward. "Sir, I saw you," the chief said. "From the moment I drove through that gate, I saw you. While your own mother was shaming this girl before the whole city, you stood beside her. You held her hand. You called out the lie for what it was. You were ready to lose your family and your name for her when you still believed she had nothing to offer you. Tell me the truth, young man. Do you love my daughter for herself, or now that you have heard whose child she is?" "Sir," Arins said, and his voice shook, "I asked Mercy to marry me when she was sewing school uniforms for 200 naira under a leaking roof. I did not know she was anyone's daughter. I did not care. I would marry her tonight if she were still that same tailor and you had never come. I love her, sir. Only her. Money has nothing to do with it. It never did." Chief Effiong studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the sadness on his old face gave way to something warm. "I believe you," he said. "And more than that, my daughter believes you, and she is the one who matters. A man who stands with a woman in her lowest hour is worth more than all the big families this proud woman was hunting for. If Idara will have you, then you have my blessing, my full blessing, and my joy." Arins turned to Mercy, hardly daring to hope. And Mercy, tears shining on her face, smiled at him the same soft smile that had first drawn him into a little stall at Wat Market. "Yes," she said. "Of course, yes. You loved me when I was nothing. How could I ever let you go?" The compound broke into cheering and clapping that seemed to shake the white walls. But Mercy was not quite finished. She stepped away from Arins for a moment and walked, calm and steady, to where Mrs. Ngozi Okafor still knelt weeping on the grass. The crowd went quiet, wondering what she would do. Everyone expected anger. Everyone expected her to repay the shame with shame. Mercy looked down at the woman who had tried to destroy her. "Madam," she said gently, "I forgive you. Truly, I do. Mama Ekiet raised me to carry no poison in my heart, and I will not start tonight. I will still marry your son because I love him, and love should not be thrown away because of the cruelty of others." Ngozi looked up, astonished, hope flickering in her wet eyes. "But," Mercy went on, and now her voice, though soft, was firm as stone, "I forgive you as a free woman, not as a beggar. I am not marrying into this family to sit at anyone's servant's end ever again. I am your son's wife, and I will be treated with respect, the same respect I will give you as his mother. If you can accept me with an open heart, then you will find no better daughter than me. But if you ever again measure a person by their clothes or their pocket, you will do it far away from me and from my children. Kindness, yes. Respect, always. But shame, never again. Do we understand each other?" The proud Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, who had ruled her house with a sharp tongue for 30 years, bowed her head before the girl she had tried to destroy. "We understand each other," she whispered. "God has taught me a lesson tonight I will never forget. Forgive me, my daughter. I was blind. I was so blind." And Chief Effiong, watching his newfound daughter show more grace in her poverty than all these rich people had shown in their wealth, said quietly to himself, "Your mother would be so proud of you, Idara, so very proud." The wedding of Mercy Edom, now known again by her true name, Idara Effiong, to Arins Okafor, took place 3 months later, and Calabar had never seen anything like it. But it was not the size of it that people remembered. It was the story behind it. The tailor who was a chief's daughter, the half-coin that waited 24 years to become whole, the old midwife who confessed and, having finally set down her burden, passed away peacefully in her sleep just 2 weeks after that night, forgiven by the very man she had wronged, who paid for her burial with his own hands. Chief Effiong did not lose his daughter to marriage. He gained a whole family. Arins became like a son to him, and the great mansion that had been silent and grieving for so many years was filled again with laughter and light, and one day, in time, with the sound of small feet running down the halls. Mercy never forgot where she came from. She kept her little stall at Wat Market open, but now it was a proper training center where she taught young girls with no money how to sew, so they too could one day stand on their own feet. And whenever a customer looked down on a poorly dressed person waiting on the plastic chairs, Mercy would say, gently, "Be careful how you treat the one who looks like nothing. You never know whose child they are. You never know who heaven is about to lift." And around her neck, every single day, she still wore the coin. Only now it was whole. Dear friends, my wonderful viewers, thank you so much for staying with me to the very end of this story. Let us take its lesson to heart. Never, ever measure a person's worth by their clothes or by what is in their pocket. The girl in the homemade dress, sent to sit among the servants and called a gold digger, was the daughter of the greatest man in the room the whole time. The one you look down on today may be the very one heaven is preparing to raise tomorrow. So let us give respect to everyone we meet, the tailor, the trader, the cleaner, the stranger at the gate, because dignity does not come from money. It comes from God, and every single person carries it. Now I would love to hear from you. Here is my question. Was Mercy right to still marry into the family that humiliated her so publicly, choosing love and forgiveness while setting a firm boundary of respect? Or should she have walked away from the Okafors for good and never looked back? There is no wrong answer. Tell me honestly what you would have done in her shoes. Write it in the comments below, because I read them, and I truly want to know what is in your heart. If this story touched you, please do 3 small things for me. Tap the like button so more people can find this story. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next tale we bring you. And share this video with one person who needs to be reminded that heaven sees the humble and never forgets them. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for your time and your kindness. May you never be despised, and may the good you do quietly today find its way back to you when you least expect it. Until next time, take care of one another. This story is a work of fiction. All names, characters, places, and events are the product of imagination and are used in a fictional manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events, is purely coincidental. This tale was created for storytelling and moral reflection only.